The basement smelled of dust and old concrete as detectives stepped through the doorway, their flashlights cutting across scattered tools and a shallow pit near the center of the room. It was late on a warm May night in 2006, and the house in Independence, Missouri was quiet except for the scrape of boots against the floor. Officers knew they were looking for 36-year-old Marsha Spicer, reported missing by her family after she failed to show up for work. What they did not yet know was the extent of the violence that had taken place inside the home. Marsha had met her boyfriend, Richard Davis, only months earlier. He presented himself as charming and protective, someone who understood the pressure she faced as a single mother trying to rebuild after a difficult breakup. Friends remembered how she lit up when she talked about him, believing she had finally found someone who valued her. What she could not see was the darker side of his personality, the way he masked aggression beneath affection, or how he isolated her from the people who cared about her. The relationship shifted quickly. Davis began questioning her about minor details, demanding explanations for phone calls, insisting she account for every hour of her day. His accusations grew more intense. When she tried to pull away, he apologized, made promises, and pulled her back in with the same charm that had drawn her to him in the first place. Marsha believed the situation would ease in time. It didn't. His anger deepened, and he tightened control over nearly every part of her life. The men and women he invited over shared his appetite for domination. One of them, a young woman named Dena Riley, moved into the house and became Davis's partner in intimidation. Marsha endured their demands in silence, hoping compliance would calm the situation and give her a chance to leave safely. On the night of May 14th, the tension broke. Davis confronted Marsha in the living room, accusing her of disrespecting him earlier in the day. The argument escalated as Riley joined in, blocking the door and preventing Marsha from escaping. What followed was a prolonged and deliberate assault. Davis and Riley beat her for hours while recording parts of the violence on a camcorder. Marsha's voice grew weaker as the night continued, her pleas fading as the attack intensified. The shallow pit detectives would later find had been dug days earlier, though no one knew why at the time. Davis and Riley forced Marsha toward it, continuing the assault as she struggled to stand. Injuries from the beating left her unable to resist when they pushed her into the hole. Dirt was shoveled over her while she was still breathing. A medical examination later confirmed she died from a combination of blunt force trauma and suffocation, trapped beneath the soil in the final moments of her life. When Marsha failed to appear at work the next morning, co-workers tried calling repeatedly. Her absence felt immediately wrong. She was dependable, punctual, and never missed a shift without notice. Her sister contacted police by early afternoon, explaining that Marsha had seemed anxious during their last conversation, but had not shared details. Officers attempted a welfare check, but no one answered the door. Only when a neighbor reported seeing Marsha enter the house but never leave did detectives elevate the case to a possible abduction. 2 days later, investigators learned Davis and Riley had fled the state. They were already wanted for another violent crime, and Marsha's disappearance intensified the search. As agents closed in on the pair in Kansas, Davis attempted to run but was arrested with no further harm to officers. Interviews with both suspects led detectives back to the house in Independence, where they began a full search of the property. The basement revealed the truth. Soil samples, blood evidence, and the partially filled pit confirmed that Marsha had been buried alive. Detectives recovered clothing and personal items that matched descriptions provided by her family. The discovery ended the search for Marsha, but opened a deeper investigation into the couple's pattern of violence. Prosecutors charged both with murder, kidnapping, and multiple counts related to the recorded assaults. During the trial, jurors listened to testimony that revealed the extent of the abuse Marsha endured. Friends spoke about her kindness, her steady humor, and her determination to rebuild her life. Family members described her devotion to her children and the pride she took in providing for them. The recordings introduced as evidence showed the cruelty inflicted upon her, leaving jurors visibly shaken. Davis was sentenced to death, while Riley received life in prison without parole. Neither showed remorse. For Marsha's family, the verdicts brought accountability but not closure. They mourned a woman who had been trapped in an environment she hoped she could navigate safely. The outcome underscored the danger she faced in the days leading up to her death. In the years that followed, Marsha's case became a reference point in discussions about domestic violence and the warning signs that often appear long before physical harm begins. Advocates used her story to push for earlier intervention and stronger community support for people trying to leave dangerous partners. Her family chose to speak about her publicly, hoping that her experience might help protect others. Her absence left a hole in the daily lives of those who had relied on her calm presence. Co-workers placed a flower at her workstation on the anniversary of her death. Her children, raised by relatives who ensured they understood the truth with care, grew up hearing stories about her warmth and resilience. Community members who had never met her learned her name through outreach programs dedicated to preventing domestic violence. Investigators who worked the case often spoke about how it changed their approach to welfare checks and missing person calls. They emphasized the importance of acting quickly, remembering how close they came to missing the connection between Marsha's disappearance and her last known movements. For them, the case reinforced that danger inside a home is not always visible from the outside, and silence can be a warning. At community meetings, officers urged neighbors to report concerning behavior sooner, noting how Marsha's withdrawal had been noticed but never pursued. Her story encouraged people to pay closer attention and to offer support when something felt wrong. Over time, her memory became part of local efforts to strengthen community safety, ensuring she would not be forgotten. Thank you for listening to Homicide Files. Subscribe for more true crime stories.